Greetings, fanboys and fangirls. Jared here with another video from Fanboys Forever. And today, before we start our custom project, I just have a little word of warning for you. Remember, custom projects can get messy and things can go wrong. So whatever you do to your figure is done at your own risk. All right, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and see what we have here today. We have one of the PX Supreme Knight Batmans. This is an extra one that I've acquired. The original prototype image you can see here had a darker finish, and that's what we're going to try to get today. You can see that I have the stove on near boiling for my little pot of water. I actually purchased a little boiling pot here that is just meant for my RitDye projects. I also have some paper towels, and we're going to need lots and lots of them. Anytime you are dealing with something that has RitDye on it, you don't want that dye to get on any kind of table surface or anything like that. One of the reasons I got an extra pot was because, of course, you don't want to be cooking in anything that you put RitDye chemicals in. It might be all right, but I don't want to take that chance. All right, first step is we heat up the body because of what we have to do first. We actually have to pry off the bat logo, the bat symbol off of the chest, because you don't want to dye this black for what we're going to do, or dye it gray, should I say. So we just kind of pry that off, and if you're lucky, the two prongs won't break right there, because that can be a big problem if they do. But thankfully, you know, if you get it hot enough, it should come right out. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. Remember, heat's your friend on that. Same for the belt. Hotter you get it, the easier that the little bit of glue they have on there will just come right apart. And now we're down to mostly what we need, but we still need to get the arms, or the hands should I say, and the boots off. So the gauntlets and the boots must go. And of course, we're just going to be heating that up, and there's Luna. Luna has come to check on the Batman custom process and make sure we're doing it right. So she looks like she approves. All right. And after a few minutes, we can see that things have gotten a lot more heated up, and we just pop those right out. It really doesn't take much effort, and they come right out, and that's probably the least risky part of the process. I've never had one of those break on me. All right, so this is the kind of RitDye I used. It's called RitDye More Synthetic, and the color I used was graphite. They make many different colors. This is the kind that's supposed to dye materials, not just fabrics. You have some warnings there, and of course you'll want to use gloves, and I don't use gloves in this, but you'll see that there wasn't much of a need to, and of course wear some glasses. This is just all the information, so if you want to pause this and look at this, it gives you some more detailed instructions. But let's just go ahead and shake this up. That's one of the instructions. We want to get this agitated very well to make sure the dye does what it's supposed to do. Next up, you can see my water has gotten a little hotter now, and we're going to put in a little dish soap, okay? Just a little bit. This helps it do its thing when it soaks into the material. And you can see it just kind of boils. We're going to agitate that mixture just a little bit to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to and it's properly sifted into the water. This will kind of ensure that it does everything it's supposed to when the dye is in it. All right, now we have our RitDye. We start out by just pouring a very small amount in there. You can see it's almost like 2 or 3 capfuls right there. The reason we do this is because you can always get it darker, but you can't go back to getting lighter, so I'm always a little cautious about this. I also kind of want to make sure that it's as hot as it needs to be, and I'm just going to mix this. You definitely don't want to mix this with something you're worried about ruining, because you could make it black or dye it whatever color you're using. You can see that it's on the edge of boiling, and I think that's plenty hot enough for what we need. Probably to get a better effect, you would want it to be very much boiling, but when things are popping everywhere, that RitDye can kind of get all over the counters. So I try to just keep it to the edge of boiling, I suppose. And you can see that everything's cleared off the body. All of this can be made darker. There's no gauntlets or anything like that because we want that to be the same color. And we're just going to submerge it. Notice how I don't have the water too high. The more water you put in, the more RitDye you'll have to use. All right, I also have some tongs here. And these are a must-have for dealing with this because the mixture is way too hot to put your hands in. It's also why I'm not wearing gloves, because you're going to see that I mostly handle the figure with this. If I was submerging my hands in this, I promise you that they would be completely blackened by this mixture. This is after only about a minute. You can see there's hardly any change. All right, we've had it in there a couple more minutes, and now Willow has come to supervise the process. She seems to think everything's fine. A lid is a really good thing because you don't want that smell kind of going everywhere, and make sure you do this in a well-ventilated area. I also turned up the heat a little bit, and I added a little bit more RitDye because I wasn't satisfied with how dark it had gotten yet. That's pretty hot steam, so watch out for that. Definitely don't want to burn yourself, and that's something people don't even think about, is how hot that steam is. All right, so we just kind of shake off a little bit of that. Remember, the lid is wet too, so you want to be careful where that drips. Thankfully, I have a black stovetop here, so it's not as big of a deal. And we're just going to go in and see if we can grab the figure with the tongs, and be careful. You don't want to damage the suit. So there's many ways to do this. There's probably a safer, better alternative. We're just going to have a quick look at the figure and see how far we are. And as you can see, a little more RitDye and a little more heat, and things are really progressing. Now there's a magnet in the head, as you know from these figures, so it actually just magnetizes to the metal tongs. And you can see that it looks like it's just about the right shade. As a matter of fact, I think that that's good enough. So it's time to take this out of the mixture and turn the heat off on the oven. Yeah, that looks plenty dark enough. So this next step is something you might not think about, but we're actually going to wash this off with kind of just lukewarm water. And the reason you'll see made very obvious, because I actually put a paper towel in the back so that you could see the proof of this. But if you look closely, as this water washes over it, it's actually washing excess dye off of it. See, now that the excess dye is washed off, you can see that it's a little bit lighter, so it's time to wash off the back as well. This is to make sure that, it's not overly done. And when you wash that excess dye off of it, it won't be getting all over your hands as you play with this thing. That's the whole purpose, in my opinion, of dyeing this, because you don't want paint going everywhere if you painted the thing. All right, so this is kind of the drying process you see in the back there where you have that excess. And basically I have some thick layers of paper towels ready for this process. And you can see that I just kind of dab it dry with the paper towels. And this is a very easy suit to dry because there's not a whole lot of fabric to it. It's mostly this kind of vinyl overlay, and it is a very sensitive material, so you're going to want to be gentle with this. I'm liking the way the color has turned out. It is very close to those pictures that we looked at earlier of the original prototype. All right, so I have my body here, and check it out. When I popped off the hands and the boots, I kept them on each side so that I wouldn't get them mixed up. So I know which side goes where. So that's on the left side, the other's on the right. I have a little tiny container for this next step. I'm going to fill it with hot water. So it's about as hot as my tap will go. Once it's right, I put just a little bit in there. Next, we're going to go to the microwave, and this is just a quicker way of heating up water instead of boiling it. Just going to put it in there, and we'll go for about 30 seconds. I think that'll be plenty enough. All right, I ended up going about a minute, I think. And I'm just going to pop in the left side of the arms and the boots there. All right, we're going to get that out with a fork because we don't want to touch that hot water and burn ourselves. And I pop those on. Let's put the other ones in. Now for these, I'm actually going to show you why I did that, because that's made these soft and malleable, and it's going to make it much easier to pop them into those pegs. Even when you boil them, it's still kind of difficult to put them on. I just keep twisting. You'll see that I do this twisting motion that just kind of eases it on there, and I get a good grip on like the forearm there. So you definitely need a good grip. All right, got that on there. There he is with his limbs intact. Time to put the belt on. So earlier we got the belt off, and it's much easier to connect it. All I have to do is take a little bit of my favorite super glue brand and put just a tiny little dab. You don't hardly need any. That was maybe even too much. And then you just reconnect the belt. All right, next up is the chest logo. I don't even glue this back in because honestly, it needs no glue. And I wish Mezco wouldn't glue it because, you know, options. It's nice to be able to take this thing out if you ever want to replace it with something else. So just kind of pop that in. It doesn't go in all the way at first. As a matter of fact, I thought it was, but you can see it's a little bit past the chest. So I'm just going to press pretty hard and get it in. And I think that looks good. It's just about right. But look, the magnet has actually come out of the top because, and this happens a lot with this figure, because there's not much glue holding the magnet into the neck. But this is a relatively easy fix. All you have to do is just take a little bit more of that, put a dab in there, and it's glued much more securely than what the Mezco factory actually had it glued once you're done. So I take the magnet back off of the headpiece, the neck piece, and just put it in there, and it only takes a minute to set back in there. All right, that's good. It only took a minute, and now I've got them all back together. And wow, he really does look quite a bit more like the prototype. And here he is with an original so that you can see the difference. You see that he's much closer. This is very bright lighting here, but it definitely looks more like that original. Of course, the bat logo isn't as gigantic as that original, but I never liked how big it was in the original. What I did like was that shade of gray, and I think this looks like a good match for it. All right, guys, I thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this has helped you, and this is something that you'll find very simple to do and enjoyable. As always, we ask that you please subscribe so you don't miss any other videos like this. We did sort of a similar video that was all about the Sovereign Knight Batman a little while back, and it was really a similar process, but that figure is very different, and we were going for kind of a different look. Of course, let me know if you have any questions below. I'll do everything I can to help, because this is definitely something that I want all of you to be able to do, because I consider this a very easy custom because, and I'm talking about myself here, I don't like to have to paint things because the paint gets everywhere, especially when you paint something like vinyl. I want the figure to be as usable and as posable as it ever was when I first got it, even with custom modifications. By using RitDye, you're able to do that without kind of sacrificing the play value and the pose value, and it just changes the look of the figure so dramatically, and I prefer it any day to painting. Well, guys, thanks again for watching. God bless you and yours. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Fanboy out.